That's Adele, one of those magnificent talents that packs houses everywhere. Hope to see her at the KFC Yum Center someday. We've had some magical acts there thus far. U of L basketball and other spectacles at the KFC Yum Center downtown. Well, Jay Bruce Miller has returned to the show. We haven't talked to him in a while. Good to see you again, brother.
Good to be here, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we talk now and again about what's happening here in Louisville and the arena and potential for growth in various sectors. And I just thought we'd pick up the conversation where we left off the last time. I read an interesting article a month or so ago that quoted Todd Blue, who's leaving the arena board, and he talked about how there need to be some changes in what goes on because payments are short on our Louisville arena. What is the plan for down the road when the taxpayers have to come up with whatever shortcomings the arena can't come up with?
Well, Terry, quite frankly, I don't think there is a plan. And it's been disturbing, but you don't, as a citizen here, it's disturbing. And but the fact of the matter is, you cannot create a $349 million bond issue to build an arena and pay for it with 20 dates with a college team who doesn't pay taxes. It just and the other things, of course, are helpful, but an arena of that size needs about 150 at a minimum dates a year in the bowl itself, not in an ante room somewhere, in order to break even. And they have a little more than half that.
That's what the article that I referenced was talking about, how we have to fill so many more dates. But you're talking about whether or not the actual arena itself, because maybe sometimes other parts of the arena, meeting rooms or the bar in the back or whatever is rented, and they count that as an active night when really it's not.
No, it means nothing.
Let's talk about a couple of issues. The TIF, tax increment financing, was originally set up as a footprint for so many miles in so many directions, and it was to generate so much money to help pay down the bonds or the interest and principal or the whatever, the cost of the arena.
Right.
And it's fallen way short of projections, correct?
Right. And in TIF districts generally do.
Whose feet do we hold to the fire for that?
Well, I think part of the problem was that the beginning of the arena, it was Governor Fletcher was interested in trying to make a headway in a political race to rerun for governor with the University of Louisville supporters, and there are many of them. And we started off on the wrong foot, and in that respect, and never really got back where all of the train was on the track, and nobody and everybody that said anything about it and brought things to light about it was considered a negative nabob of some sort, and so it developed a life of its own. And never had the only serious examination that was ever done was done by David Jones and John Snodder when they said it was being built in the wrong place. It should have been built over on the 3rd Street block, and that would have saved between $120 and $150 million. And they hired the best guy in America to do that, Dean Bonham, who was the number one person in the country and still is.
How in the world would it have saved that much money? Because of that LG&E infrastructure that had to be taken down?
Well, that, and it was an empty block. And it had 4 sides available for traffic, and this one only has 2.5 or 3 sides. It had a multiple of things. Mainly, there was nothing on it at all other than one building, which was, I think, the old Louisville Water Company building, and it could have been torn down. But
What's done is done there.
That's correct.
It's
That's
in the
pays.
spot that it's in. All right, we're going to break and take our regular weather and sports things, but I'd like to get into a deeper conversation about how we're going to pay the principal when it comes due. Right? Aren't we in a situation now where we're paying interest only on these bonds?
Interest only.
So about the year 2020, I'm guessing, since it was a 10-year, we're paying interest for 10 years. Is that right?
Well, it'd be 2018, I think, or 2019.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about 7 years from now or 6 years from now. Then you pay interest and the principal, which is significantly more, $17 million more. Is it?
It will be over that. The bonds are 30 years, and the principal will be paid for only over 20 years. So it'll be over $17 million alone in principal payments.
The question is, since taxpayers are already having to be the backstop right now, without even the principal payments due yet,
right?
What are we going to do in 2016, 17, 18, whatever the year is? It's coming.
It's coming.
The train is rolling. We'll get to that in a few minutes here on 84 WHS with Jay Bruce Miller. That's One Direction, the teen group that will be playing in the KFC Yum Center next summer. That's right, next summer, next July. I like that, man. They're collecting money on a concert that's over a year from now. It's good stuff. Jay Bruce Miller's in the studio with me. If you weren't with us earlier, we started talking about the arena project and some of the troubles that we're going to have, it looks like, paying bills down the road. Well, shows like that help. And you and I first referenced an article saying we need a lot more dates. We got to get the lights on in this place more often.
Exactly.
And I know that you have been talking about an NBA team for years, and that has not come together for various reasons. I know the Sacramento franchise is still up in the air.
I think it's more than up in the air. I don't think they're going to be in Sacramento anymore. Now, where they go, I don't know. They're looking at Anaheim. I don't know that the league would allow that. There's a talk about Seattle. The city of Columbus, Ohio, their mayor wrote a letter to David a couple of weeks ago. Stern, but they can't accomplish that in Columbus. So it's
with the Cleveland franchise not too far away.
Dan Gilbert would never let that happen.
Why would Louisville be allowed though with Indiana's Pacers just up the road?
Well, I think the difference is that's the same state, and there was a rivalry between the Pacers and the Colonels years ago that was electric. And that would be, I think that's to the advantage, as opposed to this. There's never been a Cleveland-Columbus rivalry of sorts like that. Mm-hmm. So, and there are other reasons.
And is there enough money, though, is the next question.
In Louisville?
Yes. In order to buy suites, you have to have so many companies. U of L clearly has a lot of money tied up in suites. So does Churchill Downs. Can another big player come in and ask companies, hey, buy a suite with us?
I don't think there's any question about it. We had, in the year 2001, we had over 500 companies that had $50 million a year gross or more and 20 million a year gross and 50 or more employees. New Orleans only had, that was before Katrina, New Orleans only had 330 or 40. Those are things that Louisville does that are that they look at as excuses, which we then turn into reasons for non-performance. For
not going after one of these teams,
yes.
You mean? We know the University of Louisville and U of L, good for them. They got a great deal, but
right.
As was noted in the article that came out a few weeks ago, they would have to loosen up the reins a little bit on that because U of L blocks out so many months of the year where they control all the dates, and people say, well, I got a show coming in November. Well, you'll have to wait until the Big East schedule comes out because we can't tell you when it's available.
Yes, that's correct.
That's an issue.
It's my understanding that they've lost between 7 and 10 major concerts as a result of that.
All right, and also in the contract, it says that if the arena fails, U of L would have first right of refusal on taking over they'd have to buy the arena. What does that mean?
Yeah, they have an agreement. I don't know that if it failed that a bankruptcy judge would honor that. I think that a bankruptcy judge has the power to X contracts of any kind in order to make the thing work. But the fact of the matter is, you got to pay the bonds, and at some point they will not be able to pay the bonds.
Because we're only paying interest on it now.
Right.
The original deal set up was 10 years of interest only, we're not able to really make the payments and keep the upkeep on the arena.
That's correct.
Because the projections were too low.
Well, the projections were wrong because the people that projected it didn't know what they were doing. The lead group. The rule of thumb on arenas is $500,000 in annual operating expenses for every 1,000 seats. So that's $11 million. They projected $4 million in expenses, operating expenses, and last year it was $11 million. And those operating expenses won't go down; they go up because as the arena gets used and gets older, things have to be done to fix it up. And 10 years from now, when they start paying the principal, it may well need a new roof.
It's not even 10 years. It's 8 years, 7 years, something like that.
That's right.
And the city of Louisville taxpayers right now, out of the rainy day fund, I see had to kick some in there
they're committed to pay between $6 and $10, almost $10 million a year to the arena, and they've used all of that. But that won't begin to cut the mustard when the principal comes due 8 years from now.
What do we do then when the principal kicks in and we owe an additional $17 million?
Well, we ought to be planning for it now instead of waiting for it to happen. If we wanted to be proactive about things, and 41 dates with an NBA team, and U of L changing some of the things and being agreeable to change some of the restrictions that they have in there, and the taking of money out of it that they have, which Todd Blue spoke to before he resigned. All of that should take place, and we ought to do it now instead of 8 years down the road. Because 8 years down the road, an NBA team might not be available.
And Sacramento is now, so at least we ought to be throwing them an engagement party anyway.
Well, I think we ought to be doing something. It'd be nice if somebody wrote an article in the paper about it, but I can't get a sports writer to do it. I told one of them the other day in an email that I'll write it myself if you don't know how to write it. But
that's been done before.
They've never had. There hadn't been a story about the NBA written by the two guys in the local paper all year long, and they're having an unbelievable season. As a matter of fact, 3 small market franchises are in the thick of things. San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and now Indiana beat the Heat last night.
That's right. All right, Jay Bruce Miller. Well, keep banging the drums there, buddy. The bill will come due. The train is rolling down the tracks, and we're going to have to pay the bond sooner or later. And it's going to be interesting to see all that. And I just don't want people to say, why didn't you tell us? We're telling you now.
That's right.
Good to talk to you.
My pleasure.